Hey everybody, how's it going? So a lot of you have asked me to do a video on the New York State Senate passing a right to repair bill. What do I think of this? What are my thoughts? And I thought I'd share this with you. So there are two particular reasons that I'm not really excited and happy in this video. We'll go over one now, one later. So the New York State Senate passed the right to repair bill. This is not some watered down version of the bill. This is the bill that I was advocating for as far back as 2015. And I have heard that the one thing that I wasn't super excited about is it said make available the same that's made available to authorized repair centers. And as you guys know from a video I did a while back, Apple authorized repair facilities fix nothing. They are a mailing depot that sends everything back to the manufacturer. But it was clarified with me that that wording would mean the people that actually do the repair when it gets mailed back to their depot. So depot repair. So for the most part, this bill is pretty much 90% of what I would be looking for, which is an amazing step forward if it actually passed. So it passed in the Senate. However, the way it works is federally in the United States, you have the Senate and then you have the House of Representatives. And it's got to get out of both houses. Here in the state, you have the state Senate and then the state Assembly. The state Assembly is kind of like the state version of the U.S. House of Representatives. And the bill needs to go through both houses in order to actually have a chance. So a few years ago, there was a committee chair that kept in the Senate that kept tabling this bill and killing it. And his response to everybody was, why would you want to take your stuff to some place other than the manufacturer to get it fixed? That doesn't make sense to me. Imagine that. A politician that probably makes six figures annual income off of your tax dollars saying, why would you want to go someplace cheaper than the manufacturer in a state that has millions of people living below the poverty line? The ultimate let them eat cake moment. And he was voted out. And the new people that were voted into the Senate allowed it to go to the floor for a vote, and then they voted favorably. So that's good, right? Because it's the bill that Lewis wants mostly, and it got a good vote. Well, it's got to go out of the Assembly, and that has zero chance. It's been just kind of dangling there in the Assembly since April, not making any progress, and the legislative session in the Assembly just ended, which means that there's no chance of this being passed this year. All this does is show that there is support for the bill next year, and that's not something that's progress. But that's not a win. Like, that doesn't change anything. We don't actually have a bill that's put into law. And again, we are talking about New York State. They voted 137-4 in favor of e-bikes being legalized, and then Cuomo vetoed it. And there was rumors that the reason that he vetoed it is he didn't like something that one of the bill sponsors said about him on social media. So there's a lot that can keep a bill from getting passed. And I just wanted to share some comments from this Reddit thread that I've been reading through this morning with you all. So it said the legislative session has ended. They could be called back in a session later this summer, but just likely to deal with the governor's ongoing impeachment inquiry or MTA funding. The MTA, this session has just ended. Now, Jorge1209 said this is intentional. They love to pass stuff that lobbyists don't like at the end of session, but only in one house. The lobbyists basically give the Senate permission to do whatever the F they want and focus their attention on the House. Next year, they can flip it around. This way, everyone in both houses could claim to have voted for this, and nobody is on record against it. So that would actually be really good because for the opposition, because what they could do is they could say, well, look, we supported it in the Senate and we supported it in the Assembly. So none of us were against it. So it's not like you even know who to vote out because in different years and different sessions, they both voted for it, but they both need to vote for it in the same session. Now, this is complete speculation, obviously. This is total speculation. There's no necessary proof of that happening, but that does sound like something that could happen. And this is interesting when you just keep reading through it. So why do you guys always wait to the last minute to bring these bills to a vote? And this is, just complete rank cynicism. And this gentleman over here says that he works in the Assembly, so I thought I'd read some of his comments. So it says, no, it means tonight. The Assembly is still in session right now. That was 9 hours ago. We went into session over 13 hours ago and are still going. Technically, this is still Thursday's session day. And he said that at 1 a.m. on Friday. So someone said, Lewis must be so happy right now. And I said, until the Assembly passes it, they have no plans of doing it now. This doesn't get us anywhere. Now we get to roll a boulder uphill to get the Assembly members to change their minds, which again, that's not going to happen until next year. So next year's session. He says, I'm a staffer working in the New York State Assembly, literally in the New York Assembly chamber right now. I was about to say, when the hell did we pass this? They've been working us like crazy this week over here, and I honestly believe that I missed it. The hours may have been sort of blending into each other. Ask me anything, I guess. Someone said, is there a coalition of powerful sponsors in the bill assembly? And he says, if there is a bill introduced, it has a number, I can look it up, but if it hasn't been introduced and given 3 days to age, then it requires a message of necessity from the governor to be voted on. If they are waiting on a message, then we might as well consider this dead on arrival this time around. I'm not too familiar of who exactly has been pushing this in the Assembly, though. Okay, it's Assembly Bill A7006. It's currently referred to the Consumer Protection Committee, which at this point means it is dead. In order for this bill to be passed, they would have to call several different committee meetings off the floor in order to push this bill through. This process might add several more hours to our already nearly 14-hour straight session time, which is already insane. A message of necessity isn't needed for this to be voted on, but being that most of us have been here since 8 a.m. yesterday, this just isn't going to happen, sorry to say. So he started work at 8 a.m. on Thursday, and he was posting this around 2 a.m. on Friday, which is crazy. And they said, why is the committee so understaffed and or lacking for time? And he says, New York politics are very nuanced and complicated. Sometimes things can get held up for seemingly no reason other than one member feels like dragging their feet. And this is where you're all going to come in, so please do keep a little bookmark on that. Or the governor wants to name a bridge after his father. I'm guessing this gentleman didn't vote for Cuomo. It's not always a matter of staffing or time. It's tough to speculate on the exact reason the bill has stalled. Add that to the fact that after this week of every day being 14-hour days, everyone is too exhausted, members and staff, to be prepared to hold up every other piece of legislation that needs to pass tonight for what could literally be hours of debate on one single items. And this gentleman says that sounds like an absolute cluster F, and I agree. And that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. And he says that this bill has 40 sponsors, which is almost a third of the 150-member assembly. I don't know what is holding this up. It's New York politics. Tough to speculate. Hate to say it, this has zero chance. The Senate passing it is good news, but this bill has been stuck in committee since April in the assembly. We're going on almost 14 hours, and yeah, they're just no chance. And he says, this is a very complicated and nuanced process. Technically, they can do pretty much whatever, but this is politics, and not just politics, but New York politics. End of session usually means it's over until next year. Also, you must understand that every staff member just worked a 17-hour day, and you get the idea here. But this is not a passed bill. This is not something that is even remotely close to becoming a law. And where I could use some assistance here, and I usually wouldn't ask for this type of thing or even have the expectation, but something I've learned from my YouTube subscribers here in the comment section is that you people are very good detectives, much better detectives than I ever gave you credit for, and I apologize for that. There are many times in the past where you have found information that just I have no idea how you find this stuff, but you do. And in the Senate, we figured out who was holding this up. We got them voted out, and now it passed the Senate. So my question to you, who is holding this up in the Assembly? Does anybody know who is holding this up in the Assembly? Does anybody know how we can hold their feet in to the fire so that this doesn't happen next year? I would be very, very curious, because I know that all of you have been sending lots of emails, lots of phone calls, lots of letters, and this is usually the way it works. Usually one or two people that just slow walk it so it never makes its way out of committee. I'm kind of curious who that is. And if any of you have ways of figuring that out, if any of you work in the Assembly, if any of you know these Assembly members, I would be really, really curious, because this is one of those things kind of similar to New York City real estate that I was showing you about, where things are just so shady and so nasty, but the moment that you take a light and you shine it on it, it kind of starts to change, and that's what we're trying to do here. So this is not something that is becoming law in New York anytime soon. All this is a win in that it creates a news headline. It gets more people to understand the issue. It makes it seem like less of a radical issue. Because again, if you have something that can't even make it through, here, then that's just, then it seems like it's too insane. I remember someone in Maine said, even California didn't pass this, and they say that my chair will give me cancer. And everybody in the room laughs. And like when that happens, you just know that there's absolutely no chance of getting anything move forward. So I'm hoping that we're able to get this move forward in other states, because there are other states where we're working. I'm also hopeful that there's a chance of me trying to take a different approach in some states. I'm going to look into doing that, and it may kind of bump heads with some current approaches, but I'm really at that point where I'm kind of ready for a mildly different approach to things, and we're going to be starting on that soon. And I'm really hopeful that we can figure out who is holding this up in the Assembly this year so that next year things are different. And honestly, I'm not as pessimistic as this gentleman is, who says, well, the Senate will pass it this year, but the Assembly won't this year. And then next year, the Assembly will pass it, but the Senate won't. This way, none of them can say they were against the bill while not letting it pass. I'm not that pessimistic, but if something like that winds up happening, then I'm just pulling my hair out. But anyway, so that's about it. And I'm not particularly, I haven't been doing as many videos while I've been traveling over the past day or two. And the other reason, I said I was going to say there was two reasons why I wasn't particularly happy. The first was that the Assembly is not passing this and is slow walking it, making the news of the Senate passing it completely a non-starter for getting a bill passed. The second is I've been on this road trip, and I was talking about traveling, and I was debating seeing someone that was an employee of mine about 9 years ago. If I go a little bit more west, he worked here for about 4.5 years. We were actually talking about him at breakfast yesterday with the manager, his wife, Erica, and I. And we got a phone call. We were passing by some Mac repair places in Tampa. Wanted to just say hi, and we got a call that he is in a medically induced coma. He was on a ventilator. He's been on dialysis because his kidneys failed after he got COVID, and that just kind of screwed up my day. He was a really good dude, really nice guy. And, I met him in 2011. He came over when I had a supply company that sold parts. And he worked for a person that I had worked for literally 3 or 4 days. It was a horrible, horrible place that rips people off like crazy. I quit after 4 days. I couldn't be a part of it. And he was working there. He walked over. He was a kind, courteous, really organized guy that knew his stuff, knew his repairs. And I just asked him, so what's it like working for Redacted? And he's like, it's all right. And I go, okay, I'm gonna let you answer that again, but honestly. And then he actually told me everything, and we had like a 45-minute talk back and forth. And I asked him what he was making, and at the time, because I was kind of interested in hiring somebody else. This was like 2011 when I was just transitioning from having an office to soon having a store. I couldn't afford him; he was making more than I could afford to pay. But I kept his phone number, and I kept in touch with him, and hopefully someday I could afford it. And then about 14 months later, I was able to afford paying him about 20 or 30% over what he was getting there to work about 5 or 10 hours less a week. And at that point, he's like, okay, I'll come over work for you. And he was really crucial at that early stage because of how well organized he was and how good he was at setting up just basic systems for getting things done really quickly when you don't have a lot of time and you don't have a lot of people. He's really good at this type of stuff. Really helpful in those early stages. And I was always, I kind of wanted to visit and say hi while I was on this road trip, and to be talking about him that morning, and then later that day to hear that he is on a ventilator, he's on dialysis, and that there's a coin flip chance that he's going to be, I don't know, I'll be honest, that just kind of destroyed my ability to have kind of enthusiasm when I do these videos. Usually I come up here, hey everybody, how's it going? So today we're going to talk, I don't know, I'm just not happy right now. I'm sorry. So probably you may not hear from me for the next few days or so because I'm just, not in a great mood. Anyway, I'll see you all later, and that's about it.